Hello everyone, you welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. I'm Bable Jonathan in Douala, and of course we take the headlines. Cameroon's 2019 African Cup of Nations hosting rights are hanging on the balance. Members of the Executive Committee of the Confederation of African Football are meeting in Accra, Ghana to decide on the fate of Cameroon as far as the hosting of that continental jamboree is concerned. The decision of the Confederation of African Football is yet to be known as far as this is concerned, and 5 persons perished in a road accident in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The 5 persons, all motorbike riders, died in the accident that occurred earlier today in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us on this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. It has been on every lip in the Republic of Cameroon. The hosting rights of the Republic of Cameroon as far as the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations is concerned is hanging on the balance, and the decision of the Confederation of African Football is highly awaited. The Executive Committee of CAF is still meeting in Accra, Ghana, to decide on the hosting rights of the Republic of Cameroon ahead of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations with regards to the ongoing construction and rehabilitation works in different stadia across the country. In Yaoundé, in Douala, and of course in Garoua, there are still some construction works going on, and of course there are equally security challenges with regard to the Anglophone crisis and the Boko Haram attacks in the far north region of the country that are among the factors that are putting the country's hosting rights of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations hosting rights on the balance. But till now, the official decision of the Confederation of African Football is not yet known concerning the fate of Cameroon on the organization of the African Cup of Nations. As soon as we are informed, we will bring it to you, the decision of the Confederation of African Football. And of course, I indicated earlier that it has been the main subject of discussion on the social media. Some are praying God to intervene so that Cameroon can organize this continental competition. Others are condemning the fact that Cameroon obtained the 2019 hosting rights 4 years ago, but few months to the event, she is not yet ready. This is what some social media users are saying. Others think that the AFCON is not a priority because, according to them, it will not have any impact on the lives of Cameroonians. But authorities as well as other observers have been indicating that the organization of the African Cup of Nations will have a lot of fallout as far as the daily lives of some Cameroonians are concerned, who will be involved in one activity or the other, hotels, other business activities, and of course the development of some parts of the country like the Japoma neighborhood, where the 50,000 capacity stadium is still under construction, and of course an entire sports complex, as well as the Olembe neighborhood in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, where a 60,000 capacity stadium is being constructed, as well as other benefits of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations if the hosting rights are not withdrawn from Cameroon. And some social media users are also saying that the Anglophone crisis should be solved before anything. And we will be bringing to you the decision of the Confederation of African Football concerning Cameroon's 2019 Africa Cup of Nations hosting rights as soon as the information streaming from Accra, Ghana, where the executive members of the Confederation of African Football have been meeting since morning. And still in sports, former Confederation of African Football CAF president and of course the Secretary General of CAF have been fined $27.9 million each by an Egyptian court, and this is as a result of a $1 billion deal signed between CAF and a French media company Lagardère in 2015. According to the Egyptian court, the deal was not opened to free and fair tender as required by the Egyptian law. Equinoxe reports.
The Egyptian Economic Court ruled that the pair flouted local Egyptian law when signing a $1 billion deal between CAF and French media company Lagardère in 2015. According to the EEC, the deal was not open to free and fair tender as required by Egyptian law. Both Issa Hayatou and Hisham El Amrani say they will appeal. To Cameroon's Issa Hayatou, the verdict is quite grotesque and has no justification in that it constitutes a flagrant disregard for the facts of the case and for the provisions of Egyptian and international competition law. Issa Hayatou promised to naturally appeal while reserving the right to bring the case before any other competition international court, so as to put an end to this intolerable defamation and repeated attacks on his honor. Egyptian authorities maintain that CAF is governed by local laws. Nonetheless, the EEC's ruling only sanctions Issa Hayatou, who presided over CAF from 1988 to 2017, and El Amrani, who also left his position last year. Issa Hayatou and El Amrani have at all times, and in particular in relation to the agreement with Lagardère Sports, acted ex officio and as mandated by the CAF Executive Committee, as evidenced by the successive deliberations and minutes. Still in a statement, the former CAF president said the decision of the Economic Court to have them condemned while clearing CAF is in flagrant violation of the Egyptian competition law, the individuals concerned and the entity represented being legally inseparable and jointly liable. The sanction relates to a contract CAF signed with Lagardère in June 2015 about the broadcast rights for African football, including coverage of the flagship Africa Cup of Nations between 2017 and 2028. The original complaint was filed last year by the Egyptian Competition Authority, which asked CAF to cancel its contract and reopen it for tender after asserting the deal violated local anti-monopoly laws. CAF responded at the time by stating that it did not sell any rights to Lagardère and had merely appointed the company as its marketing and media agent instead. Lagardère paid $1 billion for the privilege of finding buyers for the rights, which remained vested as CAF, according to the football body at the time. To Issa Hayatou, despite the undeniable fact that the agreement between CAF and Lagardère is an agency agreement, the Economic Court insisted on qualifying it as a sales agreement. He adds that this wrongful qualification goes against the provisions of the agreement and the documents submitted. A statement issued by Lagardère Sports on Wednesday reiterated this stance. In a statement, it says, upon reviewing the judgment, it is clear that it contains both material factual errors as well as fundamental misapplications of basic competition laws. Lagardère Sports added in the statement that their legal advice with regards to their contract has remained clear and unequivocal, and that they will continue working with CAF in accordance with their contract to support the development of African football.
And away from sports, at least 5 persons have died in a road accident in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The accident occurred earlier today in Bonasamai neighborhood in Bonaberi, Douala for subdivision. The victims were crushed to death by an intra-urban public transport bus. Once more, Equinoxe has more.
They are 5 in number, deprived from seeing the December month. The deceased crossed to death at Bonasama in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision, early November 30, 2018. A commercial motorbike riders and passengers they were transporting. Eyewitnesses recount of the Soka 2 urban transport bus failing its brakes while transporting city dwellers.
The Soka 2 bus failed brakes and it was rolling restlessly before hitting the people. The council workers were outside too. They were collecting their impôts. That was what happened, and that was what we heard about is the accident.
Ouais, le bus a perdu le frein depuis le haut là. Il est parti accrocher le talus, croyant amortir le choc.
All attempts by the driver to crash the bus where there were no persons failed due to presence of several blocks partitioning the road.
Si le chauffeur n'était pas humain.
Sources say the driver should be held in his effort, which otherwise would have killed dozens of people on the busy Bonaberi road.
Tout le long des gens qui étaient ici, on ne devait pas seulement avoir 4 morts.
It was equally the motorbikes and the cars beneath that halted the bus. Rescue soldiers arrived, retrieved the corpse beneath the bus, and bundled the 5 corpses to the Bonasama district mortuary. Blood on the tar and body pieces were gotten rid of. The large crowd with pierced hearts blamed the Douala 4 council authorities for contributing in the accident by partitioning and blocking roads to effectively collect taxes.
Tout pour lui c'est 2000. Tu sors le matin, tu n'as pas travaillé 500 que te demande 2000 que tu as pris où? Regarde ce qu'ils ont causé en route.
Shocking wave remains elevated in Bonasama, Bonaberi, Douala.
And circulation was paralyzed for a long period of time as a result of that accident, which killed at least 5 persons in Bonasama, a neighborhood in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. In the same vein, a 2-year-old child dies in an accident in Lum, in the Mongo division, littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon. The accident occurred yesterday at Lum Shanti Dodan. A truck moving on high speed stumbled on the speed brake, lost control and bumped into 2 houses along the road. The victim was in one of the houses. 3 persons were equally injured in the accident: the truck driver, the conductor, and a young woman from the northwest region of Cameroon sustained major injuries in that incident. And the last victim, the young lady who sustained a severe injury in that accident at Lum Shanti Dodan in the Mongo division of the littoral region of the country, is one of the persons, the thousands of persons who have been displaced by the deepening Anglophone crisis. Thousands of them have fled their homes in the northwest, but more so in the southwest region of the country, and have moved over to parts of the Mongo division in the littoral region, and many of them are living in precarious conditions, and they are now depending on humanitarian gestures of Cameroonians of goodwill, as well as non-governmental organizations like the IF Foundation and even international organizations like the World Food Program. We have details in this report by Equinoxe.
These are humanitarian aids being channeled to internally displaced learners from the northwest and southwest regions. We are in Lum in the Mongo division of the littoral region, where most of the children school. This humanitarian organization has not crossed arms and watched thousands of children displaced as a result of the Anglophone crisis suffer. This humanitarian organization shows relentless solidarity out of comprehension of what it means to flee homeland and settle in a strange environment. Such a gesture, according to Aya Abine, targets schools like the Oxford Academic Complex in Lum and others hosting internally displaced Anglophone learners. To Aya Abine, the foundation will continue accompanying the learners till the end of the academic year,
to give them the push that they need to be able to study throughout the academic year.
These humanitarian aids, comprising bags of rice, vegetable oil, bread, clothes, and other important materials are being granted in a bid to put smile on the faces of the internally displaced learners and to improve on their standard of living. Some of the beneficiaries expressed gratitude to the humanitarian organization.
Most of us here, we suffer a lot, and bringing these things here is him being so kind, and I pray that God should continue to bless him and bless him and bless him abundantly.
And said the gesture will enable them feel satisfied, happy and comfortable like their Francophone brothers and sisters.
They welcomed us as their own brothers and sisters, no discrimination, and for that I'm so grateful. Even though we have been welcomed here, it is not that we are very fine, but we really hope and wish to go back to our homeland. Some of their Francophone mates joined voices to theirs, demanding end to the Anglophone crisis by government for peace to return, such that the displaced will return to their homes. They also reiterated their love for Anglophones who are like their brothers, sisters and a family. They as well shunned marginalization.
On ne fait pas de discrimination entre nous. Nous sommes seulement une anglophone et francophone.
To Aya Bine, it is imperative to accompany these displaced children as they pursue their rights to be educated.
Learned that we have a lot of people here from the north and the southwest regions. Very important that the kids go to school. We belong to the class of people who believe kids have to go to school. So that's why we came here, to help them to keep going to school and to stay in very good state of mind as they keep going to school.
He also expressed deep worry the learners, especially girls, more vulnerable, go through for survival.
Imagine what happens to a woman who loses everything, finds herself in strange land. She has to survive. She's lost her parents, she's lost the little property the parents had to take care of her, she's lost everything, she has to survive. So imagine what a woman does to survive.
Aya Abine re-echoed in the eardrums of government to solve the Anglophone crisis for the sake of these displaced learners. He advises a ceasefire, profound dialogue for absolute calm to return in the two English-speaking regions. It is the wish of the Aya Foundation to see that the displaced learners who have had the opportunity to school study in suitable learning conditions.
And the deepening Anglophone crisis is nothing less than a horrible nightmare to persons living with disabilities in the crisis-stricken northwest and southwest regions of the country. They are suffering more because of this crisis that has been pulling on for more than 2 years. Today, in the following report, our Boye correspondent Derek Jato recounts the experience, the feelings, the sorrows, the sadness, and of course the sufferings of one of them.
The physically challenged say the violent nature of the Anglophone crisis has brought pains and trauma on them. Mr. Valerie Agbo is from Mamfi in Manu Division, and he has witnessed very horrific moment.
If there is just anything that could cause a blind man to see, is when you hear the sound of gun. And I remember there was a day I was like dashing to my office in Mamfi around the Court Junction. I mean, the thing came like thunder. Ba 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 everywhere. In fact, even a blind man could see that same moment to run into the bush and run into the walls, and all of that was falling and getting up and all of that. So it was really very challenging. But more importantly, none of my personal activities like the construction of the school I'm about to construct in Mamfi have not been able to go on because as a result of this crisis.
Apart from the crisis, which they say has made their already bad situation worse, the people living with disability in the southwest region are still faced with a lot of stigmatization coming from the population.
The challenges are just enormous. Getting to some offices is very difficult to get to most of the offices because sometimes they feel that you're coming to beg, you are coming to, you're a nuisance.
And how can this be redressed? The coordinating unit of the Association for Persons Living with Disability will attempt an answer in the first ever 2 days capacity building workshop scheduled for Boya. And now
the inclusive workshop will be holding on the Friday the 30th of November and running through 1st of December, which is a Saturday venue, Cameroun OIC Great Support Boya. The number of presentations includes group dynamics and networking on organizational development, basic accounting principles. You have causes of physical paralysis and their prevention, causes of blindness and their prevention. You have practical lessons on beads making, paper production. You have training on pastries.
Empowering people with disability for a peaceful and inclusive society.
And officials in the central region of the Republic of Cameroon are discussing strategies on how to step up security, especially at this period of end-of-year festivities that will soon be celebrated in the Republic of Cameroon and elsewhere around the world. And of course, the fight against high crime with economic hardship was the purpose of the statutory meeting which took place in Yaoundé today, chaired by Littoral or Central Regional Governor Nasiri Paul Bea. Mimime for reports.
Several public structures in Cameroon have been hit by protests lately, and apart from the grievances of protesters, the government also has the problem of high crime wave to worry about. During the statutory meeting in Yaoundé Friday, grouping regional delegates, DOs, mayors and local administrative authorities, the governor underscored the need for security reinforcement, especially during the end-of-year festivities.
We have called on our collaborators not to relent, especially at this end of year, that the security measures have to be taken ahead of time before the end-of-year festivities, so that the population can enjoy their Xmas and New Year without much problem.
In the economic domain, Governor Nasiri Paul Bea said that measures will be taken to avoid price hikes in Cameroonian markets.
We equally think that the delegate of commerce should be able to inform the audience on the measures taken for there to be fight against inflation and price hikes in the market.
Some road safety measures to curb accidents on Cameroonian roads were equally discussed. Passengers were advised to avoid night journeys, drivers told to check roadworthiness of their vehicles and high speed.
C'est-à-dire en faisant des vitesses qui ne cadrent pas, et je conseille aussi aux gens de beaucoup plus voyager le jour que de nuit.
Educational policies, culture, and above all, how to guarantee hitch-free AFCON if Cameroon's hosting right is maintained were equally key issues on the agenda of the Yaoundé meeting.
Putting in place mechanisms that will enable the region go out of the economic quagmire that we are facing, and to prepare well ahead of time for the CAN Total 2019, which is going to take place in Yaoundé. And you know, Yaoundé has 2 sites, and we need to do a lot of work to mobilize the population, to educate the population, to inform them, and to have total participation, because the head of state counts on this youth jamboree for 2019.
That was Mimime for reporting there on security measures being put in place by officials in the central region of the country ahead of end-of-year festivities, and also efforts to fight against economic hardship in that part of the Republic of Cameroon. On to something else now, stakeholders in the palm oil sector equally working out strategies and of course discussing measures that can be taken to help a government in its efforts to revitalize the palm oil value chain in Cameroon. Some of them met today here in the economic capital Douala and spoke to the press, including officials of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF. And for greater details on this, here's an extract of Durrell Harlison. He is from the WWF Cameroon branch. Take a listen.
From the acronym stands for Tropical Forest Alliance 2020, which is a public-private partnership, but at the global level with governments like the US government, the government of the Netherlands, but also with big private sector actors like Nestle, Cargill, you have many of them. And within the framework of what they call the Consumer Goods Forum, which is a broad global framework of consumers. And one of the things you did mention, and from our discussions today, is that the TFA is coming as an addition to government's own efforts to try to revitalize the palm oil value chain in Cameroon. Considering that the palm oil value chain, as you all know, it's a life wire for Cameroon's economy, considering the fact that more than 70% generally of Cameroonians depend on agriculture, but more so especially in the regions, the coastal regions of Cameroon. It is a key commodity to boost rural economic development, to try to fight rural-urban migration, but also in terms of inclusivity. And that is what we're looking at the TFA bringing onto Cameroon. On the other hand, the TFA, as an initiative, is coming to support policy processes and to try to see how to translate these policy processes into practical fee realities, especially in supporting the different actors, be them the agro-industries like CDC Palmol, Sokapam, Safakam, but also the smallholders, which the government considers today to be key actors in boosting the palm oil production and trying to fight the structural deficit that Cameroon faces, which is estimated to be like 130,000 tons every year.
The mortal remains of Cameroonian musician Joe Masso William were removed today from the Douala Military Hospital mortuary, and family members of the dead artist and of course his colleagues have described his death as a huge loss to the Cameroonian culture. Details in this report by Fomi Amsong-Sanda.
The atmosphere that characterized the Douala Military Hospital mortuary Friday, November 29, was that of shock and consternation. Family members, friends, well-wishers and fans of veteran musician Joe William Masso came to pay their last homage to the fallen icon. Colleagues of Joe Masso Passaggio Fro William say his death is a great loss to the Cameroonian culture. Some describe Joe Masso as an irreplaceable icon whose death, according to them, signifies the disappearance of a greater part of the Cameroonian culture.
Joe Masso s'en est allé avec une partie de la musique camerounaise.
Others recount good moments spent with him while qualifying him as a gentle, caring and loving colleague. To the family members, Joe William Masso was a sociable brother, father, son and a musician who made them dance, and they are in deep pain that he is gone forever. Author of the famous album Asuce Lolita died on October 30, 2018 at the age of 67. He will be buried on Saturday, December 1st, 2018.
And we wrap up this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television with this sports news. The indomitable Lionesses of the Republic of Cameroon are leading in the encounter against Mali in the ongoing 2018 Female Africa Cup of Nations in Ghana. The Lionesses are leading by 3 goals to 2, and we will be bringing to you the decision of the Confederation of African Football CAF concerning Cameroon's 2019 Africa Cup of Nations hosting rights. Until now, the Confederation of African Football Executive Committee members have not yet issued an official statement on that. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Goodbye.